What's up, my fellow casters of the pod? This episode is being brought to you by My Voice. Yes, that's right. I've had a lot of you reach out to me about doing voice work for your podcast intros, outros, and ads. And I just wanted to let you know that I really enjoy doing this type of work, and I'd be glad to help you out. So if you'd like to contact me about renting this big, beautiful voice for your podcast, just use the email in the show notes for this episode. Now, let's dive into this episode of Casting the Pod. This time, it's for real. Well, hello there, good looking. It's your buddy Adam, the PhD, the previously heavy dude, and this is your favorite podcast about podcasting. Today, we are casting the pod with my friend, Kim O'Neill from the Every Day is a New Day show. Kim O'Neill, how's it going, my friend?
Oh my goodness. I'm so happy to be here, Adam. You know, it's a great day and it's kind of warm over here. So I'm glad you can't see me.
Well, we're gonna keep it hot. We're gonna cook it up here today with this episode. I had the pleasure of being on your show, which is a live show, by the way, which I'm very impressed with. And we really had a great episode there. So I feel that pressure to level up my game and really bring it here today. So it's on, girl.
Oh, I so appreciate that. You know what? I do both the live and the pre-recorded audio only type, traditional podcast show. And I love them both. And I can't get enough of this podcasting thing. And I think what you're doing here with this show, such value for those who are still on this journey, learning and growing. So I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, I want to dive into your story a little bit because I want to know how in the heck did you go from being a crime analyst to being a podcaster? How did you make that leap?
You know what? I actually started being no, that's not true. Yeah. So it just was this thing that came out of the blue and yet is very much aligned with who I am and what I love to do. But what it was, I was a crime analyst while I was also doing a couple of coaching certifications. And in particular, I was in the middle of a law of attraction coaching certification program. And so I was in the practice of, really understanding how to work with the law of attraction and align with my desires and things like that. And so on a coaching call with my coach, she had asked me, and it was about February when we had the session, she said, okay, what would you like to accomplish by the end of the year? And I thought I was dreaming really big and stretching myself by saying, by the end of this year, I want to do at least one interview, meaning that I would be a guest on someone else's show. Little did I know, about a month later, an invitation for me to host my own show came to me from a very reputable source, a very successful podcaster. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is so not what I was envisioning when I said I want to do at least one interview. But I have to say yes to this. I know that this is for me. And so it began 4 years ago under that situation. And it's been such a journey ever since.
Yeah, I'm just glad that you didn't use the law of attraction to attract crime that you could analyze. This worked out much better, right?
Worked out much, much better.
So everybody that listens to my stuff knows that I'm a fan of the law of attraction as well. And I love podcasts that have that purpose and that big why behind it. So let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what got you fired up about launching Every Day is a New Day, and like, what's the why behind it?
That is such a good question, and I'm a big believer in the why as well. And I don't think I was necessarily that mindful of the why at the time. However, I've always been felt very purpose-driven. And so I've always felt that I want to connect with a large audience. I want to support them in, really owning who they are and feeling confident and loving their life and moving forward through challenging times. And so that was the underlying essence behind why this was a good fit for me. In addition to, I had a somewhat of a performance background and loved vocal expression and things like that. So those things were there too. And it was really over time when I started to realize, okay, let's get a little more clear about why I'm doing this. What's the purpose? And even though it's been a good chunk of years, I mean, this podcast journey continues to evolve. And it's something that at times I ask myself, like, oh no, I need to stop making changes. And yet I go, no, I'm going to be continually changing. My audience is continually changing. And it's okay. If I feel that nudge to switch things up, then it's for a reason. So so that's a little bit about, what was behind my why. And I, wasn't what I learned at the beginning, Adam, was that it was also very much a personal journey. And that was the part I didn't anticipate, but was also very useful for me growing into, myself as a coach and a podcast host and things like that. So it was twofold, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is that I've talked to, Wednesday is my podcast day, and you're the third podcaster I've interviewed today, and this theme has come up where we talk about the origin story of your show, and everybody goes into it thinking it's going to be one thing, and we come out the other side realizing it's something almost totally different in the way that we're interacting with our audience and the way that the show is actually serving us. So I think that's so cool that, podcasters seem to be pretty adaptable people for the most part. Those that quit don't adapt. They just give up. So the ones that come out the other end and survive are willing to have this running conversation with their audience and grow and adapt. I know that, like, with you, I know we're kindred spirits because we're both like ready, fire, aim people. Like, okay, get ready. Okay, let's just start taking action and figure it out. Like that's what we do. And you've made a few pivots. Like you started with the live show, and then you turned that into the podcast. So what went into that decision process?
You know what? And I love that you mentioned that, because actually I didn't start with the live show. I started, there's so many different ways to look at this. Adam, I started 4 years ago on an internet radio station.
Nice.
Where I actually, had you could say a producer or someone helping out with the back end stuff. And the studio was actually so local. I literally went into their studio, recorded, and then they uploaded and did all that back end stuff. And 2 years into that, I decided to switch to another station. And it was a combination where I was now broadcasting from home, but I still had them on the back end uploading and doing all that back end stuff. And then just this, let's see here, in the last year to year and a half, I've actually been taking on me doing all of that back end stuff. And I continue to, emphasize it that way, because it is a lot of work and you have to really love what you're doing to stick with it.
Right.
So there's been that journey, but then also just the whole becoming, I first went live audio only and then transitioned to live with video. And so this whole interpersonal journey that's taken place, that was the big part that I never anticipated. I know you have somewhat of a performance background, at least from what I know of you, you do. And even though I do too, I didn't anticipate that there would be this new level of fear and anxiety
Yes.
that would show up. Did you experience that?
Oh yeah, 100%. I know it's just you're on a stage and you're live and the people will judge. So yeah, that fear is definitely there.
Yeah. And as a podcaster, realizing, if I want a script, then I have to create my own script. And yet I don't want a script because I want this to be natural. I want it to be speaking to people in the moment. I want it to flow. And so learning how to not be so caught up in my head while I'm trying to deliver this, purpose-driven, powerful, inspiring message and really be in that flow, oh my goodness, there was so much to uncover and release and move through. And yet I'm so grateful for it, because there's so much more freedom when you can get to that space where you don't have to, you don't worry about all that stuff and what other people are thinking or going to judge, because you know that you are back to your why and you're doing your thing on purpose.
Yes, I love that. And like I mentioned earlier that you interviewed me on your show, and it was a live interview. We were live on social media as you're conducting the interview. And I'm like a total wuss. I'm doing this interview just on Skype, not live. You can edit it. I feel like a wimp. But I was so impressed because that not only was that a great interview that you performed, that was a live, unedited interview. And I was like, damn, this lady really is good at this. So any tips for those that are a little bit nervous about going live, how they can kind of maximize the experience, or like a little mini checklist that you go through before you go live just to make sure that things go well?
Thank you for saying that. It definitely takes practice. And I would say some of the things that I do is I set an intention before the show and I align with the energy as best as I can. And I do this thing. If you're familiar with law of attraction in the book, Ask and It Is Given, there's a process called the 68-second process. And it's really just for 68 seconds, which is really a minute and 8 seconds, you talk about the end result that you've created. So even though it's before the show, I talk about what an awesome interview I just had with so-and-so and how I feel and the impact and the message we were able to deliver to our audience. And I just do my best to really get into that energetic space. And without fail, and actually, let me rephrase that. Every single time it happens. I feel that way at the end of the show, just like I'd set up at the beginning of the show. So that to me is incredibly powerful and so super simple. The other thing that I do is I do take some time to, check out my guests. I've already done a little bit of research on them and just make sure I'm aware of who am I speaking with. And then when I was really back at the very beginning and brand new at doing the live video shows, it would also help for me to visualize, well, what is this going to look like? And sort of walk myself through it a little bit to also align with that energy. So those are just a few things that I do. And then beyond that, it's trial and error when you're doing it, when you're in the middle of it. When I'm doing my live shows, I am not only asking questions to the guests, but I'm also listening for the answers. I'm listening for, what follow-up questions are there? I'm also looking to see, do we have live viewers who are chiming in and asking questions? And is that question, I just thought of a story I could share with you. Is that question something that would be helpful to share live on the show with the guest? Or is it something that, we can move beyond that, because I'm also doing my best to, again, stay in that flow and try to stay on topic to the degree that allows us to stay in the flow. So those are a few things that I do.
And Kim, I didn't even think about that. Like, I do live interviews, but they're always follow-up interviews. It's really low pressure. I'm not recording them, putting them out on my podcasting platform. So I've never even thought like, yeah, damn, people are asking questions live too. And you've got to have that part of your brain kind of honed in on that radar going, is this going to be a valid question to bring up now, or do I answer it later? And then still pay attention to what the person is saying and still think about follow-up questions there. So this is why you're so much smarter than I am. Like I couldn't handle this. My brain, I'd be like thinking about doing push-ups and eating meat and things like that. I'm like, I can't handle all this. So now
you are so kind, but I have to give you a shout out. You are rocking your Instagram live shows. So you've got it right there.
Well, that's in my wheelhouse, but you've taken things to another level. Now, you mentioned a story. I got to hear it.
Okay. Oh my goodness. So, so let's see here. This was sometime in fall 2018. I interviewed someone who was this really awesome person, definitely into law of attraction and just a cool person. And during the show, there was a viewer that came on and started posting some comments. And I was again trying to navigate all these things, which can be a little too much. So at times I've had to learn, okay, don't focus too much on the comment, especially if they've written like a whole paragraph, right? Like, okay, I don't have time for that. I want to be present with my guests.
Right.
But so sometimes I go, okay, let me just quickly scan this comment. Does it look like it's something worth sharing or not? And in that moment, that's what had happened. So this person had written a few sentences. I glossed it over. It looked like a compliment. And I popped it up onto the screen. So I was using a platform that allows me to also, pop up the guests, the audience comments on the screen. I popped that up on the screen. I think I even spoke it out loud. And then my guest responded and was kind of had a flat response to it and didn't really react the way that I thought they were going to. And so we moved right along. I mean, they responded to that fairly calmly, and we moved right along. And as we moved along, my head is still, the guest is now on to another question, answering another question. And my head is still processing, wait, what just happened there? And so I did take a moment where my focus diverted from the guest. I read that comment, and all of a sudden it occurred to me, oh my goodness, that was a hater.
Oh no.
Exactly. Yeah. That was someone who was actually giving a backhanded, depending how you read it, it kind of was a compliment, but it was sort of backhanded and actually a little hateful. So it's harsh. Once I really read it, I thought, oh my goodness, I can't believe I just popped that up onto the screen, that I didn't even like really get the full effect of that. Yeah. And at the same time, I was so impressed with the guest because they didn't go into, any sort of rant about it. Anyway, so that was my first time where I really had to go, okay, let's be even a little more mindful of what we're sharing from the guest comments.
Yeah. I would just do so many embarrassing things with that. Like, I just start reading people's names on Instagram. I get into it, and you know how it's all like mushed together on Instagram, so you can't really tell what all the words are. And all of a sudden I realize I'm reading like ass slapping mama or something like that. I'm like, oh crap, I shouldn't have read that name out loud. Damn it.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
And that was the beauty of editing. So I do, even though the live version is still on there, I take it off of, my live shows are on Facebook, and then I download them, I do edit them, and I was able to extract that portion, and I inserted my own little commentary. So those who were listening to the interview afterwards understood what took place in the middle. So that's one of the beauties of, being able to edit. But, it was definitely a learning moment for sure.
Yes. But your audience, I'm sure they appreciate just being willing to put yourself out there on the limb and having to react in those moments, in the moment. I'm sure that your audience appreciates that. So, that's a big deal for them. Now, speaking of your audience, I want to find out who that is for you. Like, who is your ideal avatar? Who are you trying to serve? And then how are you trying to serve them with each episode?
Absolutely. So I'm serving the people who are suffering in silence, the people who are looking for that light or hope of inspiration, through their challenging time, to bridge the gap from this place that they're currently in and trying to figure out, why is this happening in my life? And I'm trying to find this new space before they get to that more empowered, secure place in their life and feel grounded. I also think of it as a healing journey. I think we all go through times in life that feel like maybe the rug was pulled out from under us, and we're trying to regain some balance. And when we're going through a time like that, it can also be really easy to think that we're alone and to lose hope. And the thing is that we're never alone. There is hope. And even though there may be 50 million other people who don't have your exact same story, there are 50 million other people in the world who can understand that journey of moving through a really tough, challenging time and looking for that light of hope and knowing that it's okay to be where they are. And there is going to be an end to it. And there's going to be a lot of learning and growth and transformation that takes place in the process. And spirituality is something that also gets infused into an experience like that. So sometimes I have guests who are more focused on sharing, spirituality and metaphysical concepts, and then I have other guests who are not so much. But I have the blend there because I think it's all a part of our experience and learning how to move forward. So that's those are the people that I'm looking to connect with.
Do you remember the first time that you actually realized that you're making that connection? Maybe it was like an email or a comment on one of your live feeds that just kind of set you on your backside a little bit, wow, I'm connecting here.
Yeah. Isn't that so awesome too, when you finally get to hear, gosh. So yeah, there was this, I remember the very first time that someone emailed me out of the blue, a person that wasn't a friend of a friend. So, a person that I'd never had, I didn't know who they were at all. And they emailed me and they let me know that they really enjoyed my show, that it was bringing them hope and inspiration, and they've continued to follow me and they love what I'm putting out. And so that, feedback like that is also what led me to doing more of a live show, is because part of what, you talk about, what do I get as a podcaster? How does this show also serve me? It's that connection with those people. Yeah. And you don't always feel that so quickly when you're doing this, audio only show and you're wondering, well, is anybody listening to it and what are they getting out of it? So I really love being able to receive that feedback and connect with listeners.
Yeah, it blows me away every time I still get emails or DMs from somebody. Like I got an email from somebody, the nicest lady that have been listening to the Million Pound Mission for over a year, and she lived in London, England. And I'm like, you know, she lost 70 pounds, and I'd never talked to this woman. I'd never put her through like a personal training session. I had never coached her with nutrition. She just listened to the show, lost 70 pounds, and emailed me with like this glowing email. And I was like, damn, that is the power of podcasting right there. Like, that's incredible that sort of thing can happen with me, you know, sitting in my basement in Bloomington, Indiana. So it's crazy. I know that you're feeling that as well. You know, you're making that impact.
Thank you. That is awesome, Adam. That's inspiring. Kudos to you.
Well, thank you. Enough about me. Let's talk more about you, Kim. So,
okay.
One of the biggest areas that I get questions, like in our Facebook group or people emailing me that listen to the show, is around monetizing. And I think there's a lot of confusing things out there. There are a lot of new podcasters that are just expecting sponsorship dollars, and the more podcasters I interview, you know, the fewer people are actually talking about having sponsors. I think that like some of the giant podcasts are able to monetize in that way, but you know, us lesser podcaster folks that aren't like Lewis Howes and Brendan Burchard and Tim Ferriss, like the underwear companies aren't calling me, you know, like, hey, we're going to give you $50,000 an episode to wear underwear. Cool. Let's do that. So we have to get more creative. So I know you for sure have ideas because you're an idea person. So what ideas do you have around monetizing your show? How are you leveraging the show to potentially monetize? What do you got for us, Kim?
Oh my goodness, Adam. So I have to acknowledge that, yeah, when I first got into podcasting, I did not get into it thinking that I was going to be looking towards sponsorship or gaining any sort of, you know, money from this. And yet, once I got into it, it was like, ooh, I can have sponsors. Okay. So my focus totally went there. And yeah, it wasn't as easy as I was hoping it would be. And I'll be honest, I'm still working on that part. So I haven't yet monetized my show, and I'm a little embarrassed to say that. And, you know, yet I think it's important to be that transparent and say that it's not all about that. For anybody who's thinking they're going to get into it and then that's like what's going to happen next, like, no, you really need to love what you're doing first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, ideas that I have for it, though, I mean, something I'm working on right now, and it's just an idea that I've been playing with. I really think it's key to, because this whole podcast thing is so much work, I think it's key to make sure that you are loving what you're doing and what you're talking about, and something that I continue to be drawn towards. So here I'm really just sharing an idea, Adam.
Yeah.
And this is my latest idea for monetization, potential monetization, is I tend to have this thing where I love reading excerpts from inspirational books or self-help books. And I have been, okay, I don't even know how this is going to sound to you. I've been playing with the idea, I might want to actually infuse that. I've been able to connect with other people through books. And so I'm considering the idea of implementing that into my show through some of my solo episodes and sharing excerpts that I think are awesome, and seeing the potential for linking up with other authors, maybe, publishers, all those other people that would be linked to books and writing and authorship for maybe potential sponsorship and monetization in that direction.
Yes. And I've heard, this is a great idea, by the way, Kim. And
thank you.
I've heard other people doing this where like the author, there's like, of course, like affiliate links and things like that you can do, or even just like, I recommend books in my weekly newsletter, and I just use an Amazon link, and people go buy the book, and then I get the Amazon affiliate kickback on that. I think it's like 3 cents or something, but it's something.
Right.
And that's a great idea. Almost like Kim's Breakthrough Book Club or something like that.
Yes.
And
I love it. Yes.
And I think people will be totally down for that. And now I'm going to go into coach mode a little bit here.
Okay.
Like, I've seen you monetizing your platform, and I feel like that is something that counts. So it may not be like your podcast directly, but you are building a platform. So I know you've put out a book. I know that you've got like the coaching that you're offering with the helping people be able to rock an interview. Like, those are ways to monetize, and it's from the platform that you're building with your podcast. So would you agree with that?
Well, so the way I hear you say that is basically you mean by promoting my own services, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Yes. I think that's definitely key. And that's something that I've also had to learn over time, because at first my focus was, no, this is all about my audience. This is all about my guests. And eventually I had to realize, wait a second, what about me?
Yeah.
I'm the one doing all this.
Exactly.
So yes, I agree.
Yeah. And that's a conversation that I had to, it was a self conversation that I had to get over, especially with Million Pound Mission. Like, going into Casting the Pot, I'm like, okay, I'm going to promote my own stuff because I'm used to it by now. My audience is used to that. But initially it was kind of weird to do a Million Pound Mission. I'm like, and now I'm not going to talk about, mushroom tea anymore. I'm going to talk about my stuff. But my audience related to it was like, we're here to learn from you, dude. So, if you can show me how to further that learning and that conversation, then I'm all in. And like the first time I made an online sale, like somebody heard the show. Again, that moment, like you had, that you didn't know them, they're not related to you, you have no idea where they live, who they are, and just they give you money. I'm like, oh my God, this is insane. And it was like $9 or something, but I was like, this is the best $9 I've ever earned in my entire life. So totally rocked that. Now, as far as something like show growth, because that's another big hitter topic. We talk lots about monetization, but also, how do I grow my show? How do I increase my audience? How do I grow my following? What's your experience been with that so far as you've kind of dove in and out of the podcast space, live casting? Where have you seen the needle move for you?
Well, one key thing that I learned from you and Justin Shank are about being on Libsyn or any sort of platform like that connects you directly to iTunes. So my show has not always been on iTunes. It was for a while, and then I came off, and then I recently relaunched in early 2019, and that's where I had you on as a guest.
Yep.
And it's been fun for me to go into Libsyn and check the stats. And my favorite thing to do, Adam, I am a little addicted to this, is watching the map light up.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, that's so fun. So I think it's really having this resource or tool that allows you to see where you are growing, and and also to be able to stay on top of it, where you see, oh, okay, I grew more from this episode, and I titled it, using these keywords, and to really be able to follow what's working for the individual, and that's the space that I'm in, and really enjoying right now.
And I love that tip too, and I want to kind of emphasize that point of you kind of use your crime analyst skills to analyze who you're talking to, right? Knowing our avatar is key. And I talked about this in our podcast, the Podcastermind Facebook group a couple of weeks ago, of like, that's one of the questions that we have to know as podcasters is, who are we teaching? Who are we talking to? And what do they need to hear from us? So you analyze and like, ooh, this episode topic always gets a little bit more downloads. People are more interested in that. Maybe I put more out there. I know a lot of people that do interviews and solo episodes. I just interviewed a gentleman named Mark Crandall, and he's like, I realized that my solo episodes were getting 3 times the amount of downloads as my interviews, and I'm chasing all these fancy people for interviews, and my audience wants me. So
that's awesome.
Like, those little things we have to dive a little bit deeper. So being able to get into the analytics a little bit, like Libsyn provides for us, that's a huge benefit. So if you guys aren't doing that, then definitely check it out. And that's something that we all see benefit from. So now, what was the country that you were like, no way, like Kazakhstan? No, who's listening to me in Kazakhstan? Like, was there one that you just freaked out about?
Okay, Bosnia and Herzegovina.
Yes.
You know what? So at the time of this recording, is it okay if I go ahead and say what episode just came out?
For sure.
Okay, so yes, there are a variety of episodes where the map lights up even more, but I'm going to highlight one that just came out because it's definitely shown a increase. So I just uploaded an episode this week where I titled it "Transforming Through Nude Modeling."
Yes.
And I think sex sells, because all of a sudden the map lit up.
Bosnia is all in on nude modeling. That's big.
Eastern Europe, South America. I even got some new people down, down under.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, okay, good to know.
That is amazing. That I might just title this episode that. Just test your theory. We'll see.
Okay.
Kim O'Neill speaks on nude modeling and
oh my
the
goodness.
way it's transformed her podcast. God, that's super interesting.
Getting raw and real as a podcast host.
Yes. All right, so let's flip the coin a little bit and let's talk a little bit about maybe the most frustrating area or the most surprising area of your podcast journey that's been a little more difficult than expected. What do you got for us there, Kim?
Oh, goodness. The whole journey's had its moments. Definitely at the very beginning, the whole getting out of my head and learning how to be present and be in the flow, that was quite challenging. I didn't anticipate all of that. I had prior speaking and performance experience. And all of a sudden, when I realized, wait a second, if I'm not using a script, this is about me. And people then, if they're going to judge me, they will be judging who I am and what the message is that I'm sharing. And, they're going to get to learn more about me. And I'm not necessarily going to know what they think about it. So really overcoming that hurdle and getting to the point where it's okay. It's not about knowing what they think. It's about, like you said, knowing your why and being on purpose and connecting with that. And the more that I'm grounded in who I am and showing up in that way and, delivering on that why, then that makes all that other stuff start to just fall away. So that was a huge, huge piece for me. The other thing I would say is that when I started doing more of the live shows and taking on more of the back end portion of all the tasks that we do, is realizing, oh my goodness, if I'm going to edit my show, that's a lot of effort and energy and time. Yeah. So, finding that space where I am comfortable with editing and yet not burdening myself with too much extra work. That's something that I continue to find the balance with. And I don't edit every single show, but some shows I'm glad that I've gained the experience and ability to do it, because some shows I find, no, we want to edit this one just a little bit more. We've got to take a few things out that I think even the guest wouldn't want on the yeah. So the editing thing. And then also I think it's really helpful for me to have a list of what are all those steps that I take after the show is recorded.
Yes.
I mean, that's, oh my gosh, right? I think I literally have a list of 14 things that I do after the show is recorded before anyone else even hears it.
So how do you track that? Like I do the exact same thing. I just keep everything on Evernote. So I've got my 14-step checklist. I got to check every single box. Are you tracking that in a system like that?
I just use a simple list and I just pop it up on screen while I'm going through everything.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Now, are you doing any episode batching? What's your episode as far as doing the editing and then scheduling it in advance? Do you have a rhythm with that? Are you batching? Do you like some people record just one day per month or whatever? Anything special with your schedule like that?
Yeah, so I'm currently on one episode a week. Sometimes that's a live episode. Sometimes it's not. I got to be honest. I'm still working out a little bit of a balance here. Because I'm a one-woman show. And yeah. So trying to find that rhythm where I can have things done in advance. I know I've shared this with you before too. So I'm still finding some of that rhythm. One thing I really love is having shows already in the can, ready to go, so that if I fall a little behind, I've already got stuff I can work with. But that's kind of the space I'm in. So sometimes I've noticed the next episode got posted a week and a half, later than once every 7 days. So I still have a little bit of that going on, but my aim is one episode a week.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's a huge win at the beginning of a podcasting journey. It's just settling into, all right, this is my schedule. Here is the expectation I'm gonna hold on myself. Here's what my audience can expect of me. Instead of random Joe, I post it when I feel like it. And people see some of the bigger name people doing that. I love listening to Bert Kreischer's podcast. He's a hilarious comedian, and he just kind of puts out an episode whenever he feels like it. And he can do that because he's hilarious, and I will listen to every episode. But people like me, they're starting and nobody knows who the hell I am. That you got to get some consistency going and build that trust with there's so many podcasts coming out now. People got to know you're serious, that you're not just playing around, that you are actually treating this like a business, even though many of us are making $0 per hour.
Absolutely. Well, and the really helpful thing is when you are tracking it with a service like Libsyn, and no, we're not getting any kickbacks from Libsyn for this.
I might ask for it. Like,
I think you should actually. But by having a tool like that actually also helps motivate and inspire me to, that's right, got to stay on top of it. Because the more regular I am with my posting or my uploading, then I actually see the momentum of the audience grow more quickly. So that's been really cool for me to be able to see and take into account now with everything I'm doing.
Yes, huge. So we've talked about a few of your high moments there, your wins. One of the most sacred segments of my interview on Casting the Pod is we asked the guest what their biggest podgasm is. So that moment when you were just like, this just blew my mind. For some people, it's like a big interview, or some, like with me, is the first time I hit 1,000 download on an episode. Things like that just blew your mind that you never thought were possible. And you totally achieved podgasm. What does that look like for you, Kim?
We've talked about a few of them already. So, receiving feedback from listeners that I never was anticipating. I love that every single time. Seeing the map light up and seeing that I'm reaching more people. And then also I've had a lot of awesome guests. I mean, to me, if you love what you're doing, it's fairly easy to connect with really awesome guests, because they, if you're connecting with people who have a similar message, they want to connect with you and also connect with your audience. So talking with people like Suzanne Giesemann, Daniel Gutierrez, Keith Leon, I'm even going to throw out there, Justin Shank, Debbie Dashinger, Bruce Langford. I mean, these are really awesome people who are out there in the world doing inspiring, purpose-driven, tasks and goals in their life. And I love it. So it's fun for me to talk to someone that I think is already making a big positive difference in the world, and having that one-on-one time with them on my show.
Yeah. That's one of the crazy things about podcasting too, is like, I've interviewed some people that I never thought I would ever have a conversation with, like not in a million years, like some of my favorite authors and people that have really changed my life. And all of a sudden, they're staring at me through Skype on the other side of that screen. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm actually talking to this person. This is crazy. I better put on some pants.
Totally.
I might have to add a little extra hair gel today. My God. So it just blows my mind though, that like I can sit in my basement and I can talk to like Michael Hyatt. I'm getting ready to interview Michael Hyatt here in a couple of weeks.
That's awesome.
And I'm like, this dude, I've read every one of his books, and it's totally changed the way I think in a lot of ways. And only through the power of podcasting do I get to connect. And it's just so damn cool. So, and then just meeting people like you and being able to trade shows. And we just kind of, like, we're in this podcast family now of people that are the up and comers. Like, we aren't that, I don't know if you feel this way or not, Kim, but I feel like the podcast space right now is unique and different, where, people like Lewis Howes and Tim Ferriss and John Lee Dumas and, all those big time people, it was more of a land grab. Like, you have a podcast, you've got a following, you're dominating everything. And now there are so many podcasts out there. We all kind of have to work together and just, we raise each other up. We lock arms and help each other out. So I love that. I love that about podcasting.
Oh, I love that. I think I agree. And I love that you bring that up. I think that is very key. It's not about competition. It's about collaboration. Yep. And I think that when we can support each other and realize they're in my mind, Adam, there never really is any true competition. If you think that there's really competition, then you're not understanding the awesomeness of who you are as an individual. And when I first started my show 4 years ago, I thought, I don't even want to look at anybody else's show. I don't want to be copying anybody else. I don't want to be focused on that. I want it to be all about me. And I think that served me for a while. And then I realized, oh, wait a second, I actually should kind of take a look at what other people are doing. Right. So anyway, so I want to preface that there is value in that for sure. But I think it's also key to know that, look, if you are, again, just going right back to your why and being on purpose, if you're delivering that and being in that space, no one can ever truly compete with you.
Yeah. Yes.
For sure.
I love it. Kim O'Neill. Man, this time has flown by. I got to make sure people can get connected with you. I want people, one of the things I really take a lot of pride in with this show especially is that people tune in every week that aren't podcasters, Kim. They are looking for shows to listen to, and you are somebody that I really want people to investigate. I want you to dive into Kim's world. Just, take it out for a little test drive. I think you're going to like what you see out of Kim O'Neill. So, Kim, how do people do that?
They can follow me on Facebook at Kim O'Neill Coaching. It's also titled the Every Day is a New Day show and coaching page. So just search for either one of those. They can also find me at KimO'NeillCoaching.com. And O'Neill is Oneill.
Yes, like one ill. That's how you spell it.
Okay, there you go. I never even thought of it that way.
Boom. So Kim, I'll put all those links in the show notes, all that stuff, so people won't even have to search for it. So I want to leave our audience with some action, and I know that obviously I just mentioned that people are listening to find new podcasts to listen to, but we have a lot of brand new podcasters that are listening in, looking for that golden tip that can get them started, that'll get them off their butt and on the mic and out there impacting people. So if you could sit down and just grab a brand new podcaster by the shoulders, they haven't launched yet, they're a little bit nervous about it, they may be doing a little podcrastination, what would you look at them and tell them to get them off their butt and moving?
I love the words that you just make up, Adam. That's awesome. Okay, so there is so much out there. There's so many resources, so many tools, that what I really recommend is first get clear on what do you want to do? How do you want to deliver this? I mean, if you know that you're going to do a show, you probably have some idea that I could do it through a service online. I could record something on, live on Facebook. There's so many different, do I want to be seen on camera? Do I not? There's so many different little things to decide. And I think it's key for a person that's just starting out to get clear on how do you want your show to show up, and then look into the resources that are going to support that. Because there are so many resources available that really anything is possible. I mean, you can go from using, a standard iTunes headphone with a built-in mic, or you could spend a few $100s on a professional mic. You could, work with an internet radio station that's going to do all the back end stuff, or you could just do things on your own through your own laptop and, a service online that supports you. Or, there's that app, right? Anchor. I've never used Anchor, but you could use Anchor and just strictly do it from your cell phone. I mean, there's literally infinite ways that you can produce a podcast. So I really think it's about first deciding how do you want your show to even show up, and then work from that to find the resources that are going to support you.
Yes, Kim O'Neill, ladies and gentlemen. Kim, I appreciate you so much. And as a little thank you from myself and my audience to you, all my guests are now getting hooked up with my Instagram for Podcasters course for free. So I'll be hooking you up with that as a little thank you. And if you guys out there are listening in, you're like, damn, I really want that course too. If you're not a guest on my show, then you got to pay for it. All you have to do is go to instagramforpodcasters.com. I'll teach you how to monetize your Instagram, get more downloads for your show, better connect to your audience. And I'm getting rave reviews on it so far. So instagramforpodcasters.com. Check it out. Now, Kim, I appreciate you so much. I know you got a lot of things going on. And I appreciate your time here with us here today, my friend.
Thank you, Adam. It was my honor to be here, and I so appreciate you. So thank you for your time.
All right, everybody. Now it's time to get out there and get into action. How are you going to implement something that inspired you that Kim said here today? That is how we get out there and get it done. We don't want to just sit here and make you laugh and make you cry and be entertained. It's more about implementation. If you are somebody that's sitting there and feeling like you got this message burning inside of you and you just aren't sure how to take action, grab one tip that Kim delivered here today and let's implement in the next 24 hours, because that is how we show up with purpose, passion, and positive energy, and that's how we get your message out there. Hey there, I just wanted to say thank you so much for supporting this podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, it would mean the world to me if you would share the link on your favorite social media platform or just tell one of your podcast buddies about the show. Thanks for tuning in.